I never imagined I'd uncover the harrowing truths of survival in the Mongol Empire. The winds howled, and I felt the chills seep into my bones, just as I realized that history was not just dusty texts on old shelves. No, it was alive, breathing, and hiding secrets that could shatter everything I thought I knew. I will never forget the day when a mere whisper pulled me into an abyss of fear and desperation. I stood in the shadows of crumbling ruins, my heart racing, the raw scent of earth mixed with decay wrapping around me like a noose. It was here that lives had been torn apart, and I could almost hear the echoes of their screams in the eerie silence. My fingers trembled as I brushed away the dirt, revealing fragments of pottery, remnants of a life once vibrant. What stories lay hidden in the fragments? With each piece I uncovered, I felt a connection, as if I were unraveling threads of a complex tapestry that had weathered storms no one could imagine. The Mongol Empire, fierce and relentless, had forged a world where survival meant more than just existing. Family loyalty, brutal conquests, and sacrifices lay embedded in the very fabric of these earth-colored walls. I wanted to cry out, to share each revelation with someone, anyone, but the loneliness clung to me, thick and suffocating. I thought of my brother, lost to me in much the same way these remnants were lost to time. Had he fought valiantly, or had he crumbled under the weight of loss? The same weight pressed down on my chest now, swirling memories and questions like the dust in the air. My hands shook as I continued digging. What would I find? Would it lead me to the truth, or further into the darkness? Just then, a shadow flitted past a figure, cloaked, with eyes that glinted like fierce stars piercing the night. My pulse quickened. Who were they? Did they seek these truths as I did, or had they come to bury them deeper? The ground felt unstable beneath my feet as I sensed the danger creeping closer. My breath caught, every instinct screaming at me to run. Yet, within that creeping dread, a spark flared inside me. What if the answers I sought were just within reach? I steadied myself, deciding to confront the unknown. Who are you? I called out, my voice trembling but determined. The figure paused, barely visible in the dim light. Then, with a flick of their wrist, they revealed something that glinted ominously in the fading sunlight. That my heart dropped. Was this a new beginning or the end of all I had hoped for? The truth hung between us, thick and unbearable, leaving me breathless. In that moment, everything seemed to freeze. The world spun away, and all that mattered was the question that lingered in the air: what secrets would this encounter unearth? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure stepped closer, the light revealing a visage that surprised me. It was a young woman, her eyes fierce yet unmistakably haunted. The glint I had seen was not a weapon, but a silver pendant hanging around her neck, an intricate symbol I recognized from my studies. It belonged to a warrior clan notorious for their resistance, their stories woven into every corner of this landscape, a history wrapped in blood and defiance. Who are you? I repeated, my voice steadier now, framed in confusion yet fueled by curiosity. I am Eileen, she answered quietly, brushing aside a strand of hair that betrayed the windswept chaos enveloping us. And you're trespassing into a past that wants to remain buried. Her tone was soft, yet I could hear the conviction beneath it. My heart fluttered between fear and intrigue as I assessed her stance. She was not a mere shadow, she was a guardian of history, possibly even of the tales I was so desperate to uncover. What do you mean buried? I pressed, my emotions swirling an impulsive blend of frustration and empathy. These remnants, they deserve to be remembered. Don't they? Eileen hesitated, her expression shifting as if battling some internal struggle. Remembered, yes, but not all memories are forgiving. You see, each piece you uncover has a story bound to blood. Some truths could tear apart souls. Trust me, it was as if she had seen into my own turbulent past and the aching guilt that accompanied the memories of my brother. I understand loss, I confessed, my voice a mix of vulnerability and resolve, but do you understand the cost of that pursuit? Eileen's eyes bore into mine, fierce and pleading. Your family's history, a lineage tied to those lives you dig up cold, unleash something far worse than mere memories. Her words echoed in the cavernous hollowness of my heart, reminding me of the weight of my own family's secret. Cultivating curiosity felt noble, yet it was rooted in a desperate search for understanding and connection. The ghosts surrounding us were not just echoes but vibrant identities I craved to rediscover, if only to honor them. Before I could respond, Eileen's expression shifted again, one of urgency breaking through the turbulent emotions. We need to leave. Now. She gestured toward the deepening shadows encroaching around us. These grounds are restless tonight, a storm is brewing, and it isn't just the weather. A chill swept through me as I glanced over my shoulder. The air was charged, crackling with an energy I felt building, foreboding in nature. Yet, something tugged at my heart to stay, to delve deeper into this history that intertwined my own life and Eileen's. That I can't just leave without knowing more, I said, half in defiance, half seeking a glimmer of compassion in her resolve. Maybe together we can uncover the truth without unleashing the chaos. Eileen studied me, her demeanor softening for just a heartbeat. Sometimes, ignorance is a favor. What if the answers you seek are meant to burn instead of heal? What if uncovering more of this history means losing what's left of your own? Those words clung to me, aching with an unsettling truth I was not ready to accept. A tragedy was so often called a tragedy because it was veiled in layers of love and loss that resisted clarity. I blinked back tears as I weighed my desire to know against a fear I had yet to acknowledge, a fear that perhaps there were indeed things buried for a reason. But the desire to understand relentlessly thrummed within me. Before I could find my footing in that tumult of feeling, a deafening roar shook the ground. The earth trembled as if the spirits were indeed awakening to my intrusion. We stumbled back, fear igniting in our chests. What was that? I gasped, searching Eileen's face for answers. I don't know, she replied, her eyes wide, betraying a shared dread. But I have a feeling we've awakened something important, something we should have left undisturbed. As we stood on the verge of the unknown, my resolve clashed violently with the storm brewing within the collapsing ruins. A sense of purpose ignited in my veins. Eileen tugged me back, urging me away, but I could not disentangle myself from the magnetic pull of the truth that haunted us both. And in that moment of indecision, something deep within me echoed a daring promise: I would not turn back. Secrets would either illuminate my path or consume me whole. With a shaky breath, I whispered, I have to know. I need to know. But as those words tumbled from my lips, the ground split beneath us, an unseen fissure yawning like a mouth ready to swallow us. A shaft of light burst through, illuminating the dark corners of the ruins. An unexpected escape, or perhaps a deeper descent into despair. Eileen's grip tightened around my wrist as she pulled me back, pulling me into her fierce orbit. Then brace yourself. The truth may be the very thing that breaks you. And with that, as the chaos unfurled, the shadows shifted ominously, bringing forth a storm I had never expected, revealing something I was not quite prepared to face. The hidden depths of history loomed ahead, and with each step toward that uncharted territory, I felt the weight of destiny pressing heavily upon my soul. The ground quaked, shaking the very foundation of my reality. With Eileen's hand clenched tightly around my wrist, I felt both terror and exhilaration as raw power coursed through the air, a reminder that while I was a seeker of truth, I was also a mere flicker against the might of what lay beneath our feet. As the light from the fissure steadied, the atmosphere shifted from an ominous weight to a pulsating energy. An ancient echo reverberated through the charred stones, transporting me back to the moments that haunted my nightmares. Shouts, the clash of swords, and cries of anguish melded into a symphony of survival, filling the emptiness I had always felt. What are we walking into? I asked, the tremor in my voice barely containing my growing dread. Eileen let out a breath she had been holding, her fierce gaze softening only slightly as she turned to face me. We don't get to choose the legacies that find us. But sometimes, those legacies have chosen you. A part of my mind questioned her words, but deep down, I felt a shiver of recognition. Every shadow of history we sought to unearth demanded something of us. Perhaps Eileen was right, embracing the echoes of the past could be both a gift and a curse. But before I could respond, the fissure widened, and whispers slithered into our consciousness, each more urgent than the last. Listen, Eileen urged as she knelt, peering into the depths of the glowing chasm. I, too, dropped to my knees beside her, entranced by the strange allure of the unfathomable. Do you hear it? She continued, her voice trembling with awe. Voices those who are trapped, lost. They seek liberation. They promise knowledge. The spectral murmurs spiraled around us like tendrils of smoke, binding into consolation yet cocooned in sorrow. My heart raced as fragments of stories poured forth, tales of bravery, of betrayal, of unimaginable loss. Each voice blended with the other, weaving a tapestry of intertwined fates. I searched for familiar echoes, but all I found were tales of violence, survival, and blood, horrific yet brimming with the raw essence of what it meant to endure. Do we dare listen? I wondered aloud, suddenly aware of Eileen's apprehensive expression. They may ask for more than what we are willing to give, she warned, her voice a fragile thread in the tempest. You must discern what memories are yours to carry and what burdens should remain buried. Despair gripped me. How could I possibly part with these voices that felt more like kin than mere remnants of history? But in the pulse of regret was a flicker of resolve. The fierceness in me ignited again, fueled by a yearning that could not be snuffed out. That I need to know. For them. For me, I asserted, my heart pounding like a war drum, drowning out the misgivings that crept in. I met Eileen's eyes, pleading for understanding. She studied my face, a storm brewing in her own. Then let's listen, she conceded at last, allowing a semblance of hope to pierce through her hesitance. But we must tread carefully. The truth is often born of pain. As the pulsating light enveloped us, I ventured closer to the fissure, feeling its warmth seep into my very being. A sudden clarity washed over me, and the voices intensified, swirling around like a tempest yearning to break free. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the influx of lifetimes untold. We fought, not just for land, but for the soul of a people lost, shattered by greed and thirst for power. Through the chaos of jagged whispers, one voice rose above the rest, a woman's weeping confession echoing with haunting clarity. My daughter, Suri, was taken. I was powerless to protect her. We were survivors, but at what cost? My heart clenched at the anguish behind those words, a visceral connection that sent shivers down my spine. I opened my eyes to find Eileen watching me, her expression teetering between sympathy and fear. Can you distance yourself from their pain? She asked gently, yet her eyes bore the heaviness of an unspoken burden. I don't know, I replied, my voice quivering with uncertainty. I want to reach out. I want to help. But how? Help who? She pressed, the reality of my choices hanging suspended between us. Do you think you are strong enough to shoulder the lineage of those who came before? Can you face the grief tied to each story? As the voices continued their urgent pleas for freedom, it became clear this was more than a search for truth. It was an entanglement with destinies, a grappling with emotions I had yet to unpack. Every tale demanded a reckoning with my own brother's secret, each unveiling threatening to shatter what I believed about my own lineage. How do we pull them from the shadows without losing ourselves? I whispered, grappling with the intertwining fates burgeoning in my heart. Eileen's gaze drifted to the swirling light, a solemn realization settling between us. If we lift their shadows, we may cast our own into a void. I turned to her, feeling the culminating energy resinga crescendo of past and present, of grief and hope. But before I could respond, the fissure erupted, a surge of energy bursting forth as the ground trembled fiercely beneath us once again. What? I gasped, the warmth morphing into an enveloping flame. As Eileen lunged toward me, a brilliant flash consumed the chamber, revealing intricate symbols glowing against the erupting chaos. Each symbol seemed to throb with life, urgent and alive, as if they had recognized us and the weight of our scars. In that fleeting moment, my heart sank into an abyss of realization. These revelations were not merely echoes, they were transcriptions of our fates, woven into the very fabric of existence. Something tethered my brother's story to this ancient world, and the truth of it bubbled violently within me, and as the world provided no warnings before the tempest swallowed us whole, a devastating thought echoed against my mind: the truth I longed for might end up binding me, rather than freeing me. We tumbled into the abyss, and with that fall came the promise of confronting not just histories we were unearthing, but perhaps even more terrifying, the personal histories that were waiting just beneath the surface of my soul, truths that could irrevocably change who I was meant to be. The world around us twisted, fragmented into a kaleidoscope of memories I could barely grasp. I clung to Eileen, her presence a lifeline as we plunged deeper into the chasm, surrounded by torrents of light and shadow, echoes of old legacies resonating with the very marrow of my bones. The air crackled with anticipation, as though the universe itself was holding its breath. When we landed, the ground felt solid yet alien beneath my feet, a strange landscape pulsing with unwelcome familiarity. I glanced around, dizzy from the descent, and breathed in the musty air heavy with sorrow, like a forgotten tomb. Jagged rocks jutted from the ground, each marking a history I had never lived yet felt tethered to, as if they were calling my name, Eileen. I murmured, scanning the area for any sign of her. Panic clawed at my throat when I realized I was alone for an agonizing heartbeat until a soft glow pulled my attention. I found her a few paces away, clutching her head, overwhelmed by the visions swirling around her. She looked ethereal, yet vulnerable, trapped in a reverie of anguish as images converged on her mind like a stampede. We've become intertwined, I thought, a pang of dread flickering through me. Had our fates exchanged more than bloodlines, Eileen? I rushed to her, gripping her arms gently but firmly. Look at me. You're with me. We'll navigate this together. Her gaze flickered toward mine, but her eyes seemed unfocused, gazing past me into the depths of torment. The stories, they're too much, she gasped, struggling against them like a marionette with tangled strings. That I pulled her closer, grounding myself in the enormity of the moment. What do you see? I whispered, desperate for insight, hoping to connect with whatever force was trying to communicate its secrets through her. Eileen blinked, her breath coming in erratic bursts as if each word weighed heavy on her tongue. They flash before me. Memories of a battle, a loss, a betrayal. I can feel it shift, like a rippling wave, connecting us. She hesitated, a shudder creeping down her spine. I can't grasp it all. Suris, please, they haunt me. The name fell between us like a stone thrown into silence, rippling doubts surfacing like phantoms that sent shivers crawling across my flesh. What about her? I asked, every syllable edged with fear. What about Suri? She was like us, searching for her own truth, drawn to this place. She fought for her people, but she fell prey to darker ambitions, betrayed by those she trusted most, Eileen responded, her breath catching. We must tread carefully. Suri's fate could be our own. That I felt my heart race, a drum echoing a relentless beat of terror and determination. This was more than just the whispers of the past, it was a war of history unfolding around us, a cautionary tale that could ensnare us in its thrall. Then we take her story, honor it, but break the cycle, I resolved, fighting against the cold clutch of despair. Darkness inched closer, the shadows swirling ominously as whispers grew louder, both echoes of joy and sorrow blending menacingly. You are not worthy of the truth. You will yield, shrink into the obscurity of the past. Voices hissed around us, chilling the fire that ignited within me. No. I cried back defiantly, clutching Eileen's hand tighter. We are not here to be consumed. We will find a way. In that moment of resistance, reality shifted again, the darkness yielding to a flicker of light on the horizon, vision blurring to focus. I caught a glimpse of a pale silhouette framed against the backdrop of a battle, a young girl with haunted eyes, searching desperately. It was Suri, and her gaze met mine in an instant, layering my soul with an urgency I couldn't dismiss. Instinctively, I took a step closer, reaching out, but suddenly the scene fractured again, morphing into shades of war, death, and despair. Bodies littered the ground, cries of anguish echoing in my ears like an unbearable symphony. I recoiled, yet the visions gripped my heart, they weren't just Surus, they were a mirror reflecting the gaping maw of my own fears, the potential for loss I had fought to outrun. Eileen was by my side, her voice fragile yet resolute. We must confront this. We cannot turn back. And yet, as the cries grew louder, a figure emerged from the shadows, a familiar face laced with recognition and betrayal. My brother, Kale. His eyes glowed with something darker, something I could barely comprehend, but I knew instinctively that he was entwined in this struggle, unspeakably linked to the stories unraveling around us. Kale. I gasped, dread knotting in my stomach. What are you doing here? He turned, his expression unreadable, and the haunting memories of our past swirled between us, a reminder that sometimes, betrayal is born of desperation. You should have never come here, he said, his voice cold and echoing like a specter. You've unleashed more than you can control. The fissure around us pulsed violently at his words, shaking the very ground with impending doom. The past clawed at my heart with ravenous fervor. What have you done? I found myself asking, tears burning in my eyes as the dread realization settled over me. Sometimes individuals will surrender to the shadows in the name of survival. It was you or them. Kale's voice faded, and the fissure's glowing light darkened, resonating with the weight of hidden truths, and as I stood there, grappling with the enormity of his revelation, the echoing cries surged into a deafening crescendo, leaving me dangling in a moment suspended in time, the weight of choices looming over us, binding our fates inextricably together. In that moment of gut-wrenching clarity, the truth loomed over me like a storm brewing on the horizon, unlocking our past may well destroy us all. The shadows held more than just memories, they held revelations that could fracture not only my bond with my brother but the very essence of who I was to become, and as the fissure pulsed one last time, I was left to wonder if we'd ever find our way back. The chill that enveloped the space felt like the breath of ghosts, each exhale laden with unshed tears and unspoken fears. I stood frozen, a heartbeat away from succumbing to despair. The darkness around us thrummed with a life of its own, greedy for the stories still untold, but I couldn't let it swallow me whole. I turned to Eileen, her eyes mirroring the storm raging within me. Kale, I whispered, the name hanging in the ether like an unresolved chord. He's here, in the middle of this chaos, and I can't save him alone. We need to understand what he's become, Eileen urged, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. He's lost, but if we confront him, maybe we can pull him from the shadows. The air spiraled with echoes that tugged at the corners of my mind. Images of our childhood surged, unbidden, a laughter-filled summer that felt worlds away now. But the brightness soon dulled, overshadowed by the darker memories of betrayal, resentment, and fear. A chain of decisions looped around us, forged in fire, and our familial bond threatened to burn instead of heal. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. Let's find him. We confront the truth, whatever it may be. The resolve I tried to cultivate flickered uncertainly, but for Eileen's sake, I had to believe. Navigating through the labyrinth of shadows, we moved with cautious determination, the weight of untold stories and hidden pain pushing us onward. The whispers morphed into vivid flashes, surrounding me with a tapestry of lives once lived, some full of joy, others steeped in sorrow. They wove together as if mocking my own turmoil, feeding my doubts. Was Kale even worth saving? But then, amid the cacophony, a sliver of light pried through the darkness, swiveling to rest on Eileen. Look! She exclaimed, the reverberation clear against our tumultuous surroundings. In that radiant flicker, I saw a vision unfolding, a young girl with wild curls and fierce determination, standing at the precipice of a valley that led to a mighty river. It's Suri, Eileen said breathlessly. She's reaching out. We are meant to find her before it's too late. Her urgency bridged the anxiety coiling in my chest, illuminating the way ahead. Perhaps Suri's truth was a key, a way to comprehend Kale's actions. Lead the way, I said, nodding toward her. As we stepped deeper into the light, our surroundings shifted again, this time folding into a shadowy forest where whispers morphed into a frantic chorus. That I came to fight for my kin, but all I found was betrayal, Suri's voice echoed. It sounded desperate, shaped by the weight of loss, and my heart ached with empathy. I strived to grasp the contours of her pain, longing to understand its roots, for I sensed it pressed upon my own journey. As we ventured further, the images hungering for release finally burst forth, glimpses of Suri in furious battle, wielding a glimmering blade under a harvest moon, her strength painted in hues of defiance. But each victory in these projections was flooded with deeper losses, the faces of comrades slipping through her fingers as shadows consumed their light. A shudder rippled through me, sharpening the pain of understanding. She fought for them, and in the end, they fell, I mused, a dawning realization settling heavily upon my shoulders. Just like my bond with Kale.no. Eileen's voice pierced through the mists of memory. We refuse to repeat Suri's mistakes. We will illuminate the shadows instead of being consumed by them. The fierce conviction in her statement renewed my determination. The shadows around us pulsed, testing our resolve, and I felt the very ground tremble beneath my feet as if alive with intent. We're coming, Suri! I shouted into the darkness, drawing strength from the echoes of her struggles. We will reclaim your truth. Eileen squeezed my hand, her warmth countering the cold that threatened to seep into my heart. Together, we pressed forward, gaining momentum in our shared heartbeat, each step becoming an act of defiance against the unknown. Yet, as the vibrant light of Suri's spirit swirled around us, our surroundings shattered. Violently, a kaleidoscope exploding into chaos, revealing twisted branches and barren landscapes teeming with the echoes of heartbreak. Every memory felt like a fault line threatening to erupt, and just as I grasped a fleeting flicker of Suri's essence, darkness fell anew, wrapping around us in a suffocating embrace. Suddenly, a figure materialized before us, cloaked in despair and rage. You think you can unlock what has been buried? Kale's voice boomed, reverberating through the chaos. You know nothing of sacrifice, of the price of survival. I stumbled back, mouth dry as the weight of his words crashed down like a wave, threatening to drown any flicker of hope. Kale, please. My voice trembled as I called to him across the distance. Help us find Suri. We need to understand. Before I could finish, he advanced, a tempest of emotions colliding in his eyes. You won't walk this path unscathed, he warned, an ominous resonance echoing within his tone. They'll take everything unless you're willing to pay the price. An inexplicable vertigo gripped me as his figure shifted, spiraling with shadows that surged like vengeful spirits. I could feel Eileen beside me, the breath lost in our shared panic, and an overwhelming sensation of loss swept through me. We're not finished. I shouted, my voice a whisper against the storm that swirled around us. Well, break the chains that bind us. We owe it to Surito, everyone. But just as I rallied my hope, the ground trembled, fissures erupting around us, pulling us toward an unknown abyss. Let go! Kale shouted, agitated as if torn between light and darkness. No. I cried defiantly, grasping for the tendrils of hope that stubbornly flickered ahead. We will fight for our fate. And that was when the ground tore apart, a rift opening beneath us, revealing glimpses of horrors yet untold. Suri's anguished cries resonated through the void, mingling with Kale's tortured plea, pulling me into a vortex of desperation. The darkness swallowed us whole, fractured pieces of light barely able to flap their fragile wings. And as I fell deeper into that unfathomable abyss, the last coherent thought thrumming in my heart was a yearning to become a beacon of change, if no stroke of fate ever returned to guide us out. Yet, in that moment of ultimate despair, I heard a small voice that breathed a glimmer of hope. Eileen's. It rang through the thunder as we vanished beyond the precipice. Well, find a way. Together. The silence that enveloped us in the aftermath of the rift felt heavy and demands a weight only despair could lay claim to. Falling through the darkness blurred my connection to Eileen, but intuitively, I knew she was unwilling to let go. The rush of air whooshing past reverberated with a chaotic blend of pain and hope, and as the shadows swirled around me, I fought against their grasp, my mind racing with dark possibilities. That I landed, rather unsubtle, upon the cold, hard ground of an unfamiliar terrain. My breath was sharp, a reminder of the fear that still clawed at my lungs. I scrambled to sit up, the buzzing echoes of distant chaos ringing around me. Eileen's hand was no longer intertwined with mine. Panic unfurled within me, its talons gripping my heart fiercely. Eileen. My voice trembled against the emptiness, swallowed by a relentless void. A light flickered in the distance, casting soft shadows along the jagged landscape. A narrow beam that resonated with warmth. Desperation lured me closer, but every step felt weighted, as if the earth itself sought to keep me grounded in my fear. Eileen. I called again, the edges of my resolve fraying. The only response was the hoarse whisper of the wind, but I refused to let it eclipse my hope. I pressed on, heart drumming a furious rhythm of determination. That light was my only guide, the sole remnant of clarity in an otherwise chaotic disarray. As I approached, it revealed itself a small clearing where the remnants of a forgotten campfire smoldered, its warmth somehow softer than the oppressive atmosphere surrounding it. There, beside it, I spotted Eileen, her silhouette etched against the glow of the embers, worry clouds shadowing her features. Relief washed over me, momentarily quelling the storm of anxiety within. Thank the stars, I breathed, rushing to her side. But the moment was fleeting, for her eyes held a new gravity that penetrated the surface of my relief, churning unease in my stomach. "Kale's gone," she said breathlessly, glancing away as if searching for some sign that the words weren't true. "His shadows pulled him away, and I couldn't hold on." A wave of guilt crashed over me, a bitter tide that connived at old memories, each pang echoing with the truth of our fractured bonds. "We can find him," I insisted, though uncertainty gnawed at me. The dreadful realization that our confrontation had birthed more questions than it answered clawed at my insides. "He can't be too far." Eileen remained silent, her gaze fixed on the embers that flickered in a dance of uncertainty. "Is it worth it, Fun? What if we dig too deep and uncover truths we're not ready to face?" Her voice, though soft, dripped with an anguish that mirrored my own. "Escaping isn't an option. We have to embrace the pain to emerge anew," I countered, desperation gripping my tone. "We owe it to Kelto-Suri. We must know the cost of survival. We can't lose them to the shadows." I watched as a flicker of resolve sparked in her eyes, fighting against the weight of her fears. For a heartbeat, it felt as if we stood on the edge of something grand, a precipice not just of chaos but of potential redemption. But then, before she could respond, a jarring rumble reverberated through the ground beneath us, and our surroundings began to warp. I lunged for Eileen, pulling her closer as waves of energy spiraled around us. The light began to dissolve, and the whispers returned, echoing with bitterness. "Nothing will change. The echoes of betrayal seep into your veins, Fun," a voice taunted, deep and cavernous. The shadows morphed before us, distorting into figures of familiar faces we longed to protect but had failed. "You're bound by your choices. Kale isn't the only one lost. No." I yelled, but the spectral figures pressed closer as if seeking revenge for the heartache we'd shared. I could see Suri among them, her eyes filled with unshed tears, pain that felt so intimately familiar, a reflection of my own struggle. "The whispers are a reckoning," Eileen whispered, her hand tightening around mine. "But they're wrong. We can break this cycle." We looked at each other with determination, an unspoken pact that the light we sought wasn't extinguished by darkness. But just then, a part of the shadows surged forward, relentless and predatory, engulfing Eileen. I felt her warmth disappear, leaving me with a void that echoed with despair. "Eileen!" I cried, my heart racing as I lunged toward the very shadows she had confronted, but it was futile. The darkness was ravenous, already slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. "Release her!" I shouted into the abyss, desperation thickening the air. Suddenly, I saw her face again, illuminated momentarily by flickering light, as if she were still there, fighting against the encroaching tide. "Fun. Trust. The truth will guide us." Those words ignited a spark within me, a reminder that hope, however tenuous, could withstand the weight of darkness. I felt a teetering balance between surrender and defiance. I couldn't yield, not when Eileen's voice rang so clearly amid the chaos, and then, just as I grasped that thought, the shadows whispered something chilling, a truth darker than I could digest. "Your bond made you weak," they hissed. "To survive, you must be willing to pay the ultimate price." With courage swelling within me, I turned my focus back to that flickering light, the last remnant of Eileen's strength. "Together!" I shouted defiantly, allowing hope to rise through the cracks in my resolve as I pushed forward toward the glimmering truth that had led us here. But as I reached for that light, the ground trembled once more. Then a voice, painfully familiar, echoed around me, filled with both anguish and an unexpected tenderness. Fun, you must choose. Will you risk everything to save her, even if it means sacrificing yourself? The choice hung heavy in the air, tantalizing but suffocating. Before I could decide, the light expanded, blinding me for a moment. When I opened my eyes, I found myself surrounded by swirling shadows that hinted at deep, unspoken truths, and as they coiled around me, a chilling realization dawned on me: a price had indeed been set, and it was one I had yet to comprehend fully. As I stood at this crossroads of decisions, my heart thudded in my chest, filled with renewed determination, but an unsought dread tugged at the edges of my thoughts. What lay ahead wasn't just a reckoning of shadows but the unveiling of secrets tied tightly to our past, secrets that might shatter the very foundation of our ties, and then, before I could catch my breath, the very ground beneath me split again, revealing an endless void that beckoned. A rush of air filled with whispers gusted past, and I heard Eileen's voice one last time, echoing through the tragedy of what was yet to come: "We'll find a way." Together, just as I felt the earth shift beneath my feet, pulling me in, I closed my eyes and summoned every ounce of hope I could muster. In that breathless moment, I realized this journey wasn't just mine, it was ours, and whatever waited on the other side, I would meet it head-on. But would I have the strength to face the darkest truths of our survival? Would Eileen and Cale be what this journey demanded of me? As the shadows closed in, the palms of fate hovered around me, and one chilling question whispered through the chaos: would I escape, or would some bonds break forever? The void swallowed me with a ravenous, silent roar, unlike anything I had ever felt before. It was as if I were being pulled into the very essence of despair, a darkness void of light, where echoes of past mistakes haunted the edges of my consciousness. Eileen's voice lingered in the fog of uncertainty, a beacon bright yet impossibly far. Just as abruptly as it had begun, the void released me, casting me into an entirely new landscape, one stark in contrast to the shadowy abyss I had just escaped. I gasped for breath, chest heaving as the air filled with an odd sweetness, fragrant and sharp like the first bite of an apple after a long drought. I was lying in a field blanketed in delicate white flowers, their soft petals dancing in a light breeze under a brilliant azure sky. For a moment, serenity washed over me, calming the storm within. Yet, as I sat up, uncertainty clawed back into existence, gnawing like a persistent pest. Where was Eileen? Where was Cale? The muffled sounds of distant laughter punctuated the stillness, pulling me into an uncomfortable reality. Curiosity mingled with apprehension as I navigated the meadow, each step bringing clarity etched with uncertainty. What kind of place was this? As I approached the source of the laughter, the shadows retained their grip on memory, whispering warnings of the bonds that could be broken if I lowered my guard. The laughter grew clearer, more familiar, and I stumbled upon a gathering of people, their jovial gestures surrounding a long table covered in sumptuous foods and vibrant decorations. It was a celebration. They were a motley crew of laugh lines and bright smiles, faces I thought I'd never see again. There was Kai, his infectious laughter ringing out like a clarion call, and Talia with that ever-knowing smile, the one that always carried a weight of wisdom beyond her years. I almost felt the pull of warmth, an instinctive urge to join them. Fun. Kai spotted me, breaking away from the throng as if the very ground had shifted beneath his feet. You've come back. Join us. A tightness gripped my chest, the laughter now distant echoes of fleeting joy that I felt I no longer deserved. I can't, I started, each syllable heavy. The shadows from the void lingered in my mind, whispering doubts, reminding me of the chaos that had just unfolded, of Eileen lost and Cale's disappearance hanging like a sword above our futures. Come on, don't be morose. We missed you, Talia chimed in, her inviting tone a placation to my distress. Have you brought news of your travels? Unsure how to bridge the chasm of darkness in my heart with their lightness, I hesitated. They observed me with a mix of encouragement and concern, their kindness as disarming as it was alarming. Just then, the blissful atmosphere dropped. A shadow eclipsed the sun above us. Every head turned skyward, murmurs of unease rippled through the crowd. What is that? Kai asked, eyes widening with fear. That I squinted, my heart racing as I followed their gaze to see a figure cutting through the sky marred by chaos and trailing dark wisps, ominous and foreboding. The laughter vanished, replaced by hushed whispers of growing dread, the very same shadows that sought to drag me back. Fun, Talia said carefully, fear lacing her voice. What's happening? Do you know it? I shook my head, though a sense of recognition prickled at the back of my mind. That looming presence felt disquietingly familiar, entangled with the threads of our fractured destinies. My insides twisted with an animalistic worry, the certainty that whatever came next, our haven was under siege. Before I could react, the figure spiraled downward, materializing with a grace that belied the danger clawing at my senses. It materialized before us, revealing a woman cloaked in robes that shifted with the wind, eyes as dark as the depths I had just escaped. You've seen the shadows, she whispered, voice smooth yet resonant with authority. But you seek answers. Know that there are prices to pay for knowledge. A shiver coursed through the gathering, an unease arising like fog around anchored ships. What have you come to take from us? Kai's voice wavered, small yet defiant. Not from you, she replied, narrowing her gaze at me. But from him who wanders the shadows. A choice lies before you, Fun. Will you embrace it, or will you let it slip away? Before I could respond, the air felt thick with expectancy, as if the very fabric of our reality pulsed in tandem with my racing heart. A choice? What choice? A haze descended upon my thoughts, obscuring the path forward. Then I remembered Eileen's voice, echoing against the darkness. Together. The bond we shared, however fragile, felt like a lifeline amidst the confusion. But at what cost? I looked around at my friends, their faces having morphed from joyful familiarity to expressions of uncertainty and fear. I have to find Eileen, I said resolutely, though my heart trembled at the magnitude of my words. Then choose your path, the woman said again, her voice resonating within the recesses of my mind. The world around us felt alive with anticipation, and the air crackled as whispers curled around me, tugging insistently at the strings of fate. But before I could grasp the weight of her words, another rumble echoed. The ground beneath us trembled again, shadows gathering at its edges, creeping relentlessly toward the light. A sense of urgency washed over me, mingled with fear and determination. In that moment, the choice was no longer simply mine. I felt the weight of the friendships I held dear, the bonds formed in laughter and heartache alike. Those moments shimmered brightly against the encroaching darkness, even when the shadows grew long. I took a step forward, heart pounding with defiance, ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead. No more running. I won't let the shadows dictate my fate. The cloaked figure stepped aside, as if acknowledging my resolve. Then embrace what lies ahead. You may find salvation or destruction. With her words hanging heavy, I felt the shadows surge forward, creeping, twisting around us, wrapping my friends and me in a chilling embrace. And just as I prepared to take another step, the darkness erupted, engulfing us in a tempest of overwhelming shadows and blinding light. Although I was surrounded by chaos, I felt the indomitable spark igniting within me, determination tempered by love, a deep, abiding hope. But as the shadows clawed and the light flared, a voice rang out amid the storm, a voice I hadn't expected, breaking through the tempest and sending a jolt through my heart. Fun. I'm right behind you. It was Eileen. And at that moment, the course of fate tilted precariously, blurring the line between hope and despair. As the world spun in chaos, I locked eyes with her across the surge of shadows, knowing that this moment would dictate everything, and as I reached out, desperate yet resolute, I realized, the ultimate price of survival wasn't just my own, it was the bond one would forge with everyone I held dear, whether in shadow or light. The tempest swirled around us, an unholy blend of shadow and light, pulling at the very seams of hope and despair. As Eileen's voice echoed through the maelstrom, a flicker of recognition sparked in my chest, a warmth I had longed for, a connection that felt like an anchor amidst the chaos. I strained to catch a glimpse of her through the dark tendrils that skittered at the edges of my vision, yearning to close the distance, to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. Eileen! I shouted, desperate for her face to weave itself back into the tapestry of my reality, yet the darkness twisted around me, ensnaring my thoughts with its icy grip. Each pulse of shadow felt less like an entity and more like a living, breathing evocation of inescapable dread, whispering fears I thought I had grappled with in silence. "Stay close." I called out to her, though the words felt inadequate against the surging storm. Flashes of Eileen flickered in the light, the silhouette of her figure pulsing, carrying the very essence of everything I fought for. But right as I felt the glimmer of hope threatening to break free, the shadows surged forward, swallowing part of the landscape. They twisted higher, swirling in a frenzied vortex, and suddenly, I was yanked backward as if the ground itself recoiled from me. "Fun, trust me. We can do this together." Her voice recharged my resolve, a lifeline offered in the depths of a storm. I could feel the warmth of our connection growing stronger, revitalizing the bond I'd feared had frayed beyond repair. The chaos tightened its grasp, yet I threw my weight into the fray, hands outstretched like a runner on the brink of a finish line. And then, in an unexpected moment that brought with it just a flicker of respite, Talia and Kai stepped forward, their features illuminated in stark relief against the turbulent backdrop. "We're with you." Talia's voice rang out, buoyant and hopeful, infusing energy into the air. Their faith bolstered my own as if the very act of standing alongside each other forged an invisible barrier against the impending chaos. "Elena!" Kai shouted, searching for another glimmer of comfort amidst the darkness. "You know we'll fight for you." Another voice chimed in behind him, a vulnerable but fierce declaration, "You won't face this alone." Elena's presence wove through the shadows, and together their combined energy ignited something deep within me. The four of us, tethered by love and shared pain, formed an unyielding line against the oncoming dread. I felt the weight of their support like a shield against the devouring shadows, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a tear rolled down my cheek, not from despair, but from a swelling tide of gratitude that I dared to embrace, together. I echoed back, rallying their power in an overwhelming wave of determination. I had once thought the darkness was an adversary I needed to conquer alone, but now, standing hand in hand with my friends, I understood that vulnerability could birth strength within the tumult. Yet, just as the tide of hope surged to counter the shadows, the cloaked figure re-entered my periphery, her expression an inscrutable blend of amusement and pity. "This small assembly will not change the fate you have yet to choose," she warned, an undercurrent of foreboding punctuating her words. "Who are you?" I shouted, the ground still trembling beneath us. "What do you want?" Her smile twisted wickedly as she surveyed our group, already bloomed in the light of newfound conviction. "You cannot defy an imminent choice born from shadows. Do you truly believe you can escape? Or will you cling to bonds that offer only illusions of strength?" The shadows lunged again, tendrils grasping fiercely at the air, hungry for our connection, for our bravery. Each whisper from their depths seeped into my mind, a cruel echo of self-doubt, regret, and disbelief. But Eileen stood beside me, her presence a steadfast flame as I submerged into the relentless tide of the storm. "Fun, remember who you are. We've walked through the darkest paths together." With her words in my heart, I dared to grasp the terrifying possibility laid before me, a truth that twisted painfully deeper. To challenge the shadows wasn't merely a fight against an external force, it was a battle with the remnants of my fears, the stains of my past blunders. I realized all at once that the true weight of this moment was not the mere act of choosing, but the acknowledgement of who we were as a group, our strengths and frailties intertwined. Yet not all of me was wholly present, still tethered to the void from which I had emerged. "What if I'm not strong enough?" I admitted, the admission tearing at my chest. "What if I lose you all?" Talia squeezed my hand tighter. "You'll never lose us as long as you fight." And with that, something awakened inside me, blooming into recognition and understanding that our histories shaped us, but did not define us. In the depths of the storm, enveloped by shadows and light, I faced the reality of our fight. But just as clarity surfaced from the depths of our resolve, an unexpected deafening cry tore through the chaos like a cleaving blade. It erupted from the cloaked figure, shattering the air around us. "Know this, Fun, every choice comes with sacrifice. One must fall for the others to rise." The ground shook violently beneath us, dawning the stark realization that my responsibilities were deeper than I had dared to acknowledge. I remembered Eileen's voice softly weaving through the fabric of my consciousness, urging me to face the shadows rather than run from them. "Fun, it's time," Eileen urged. Her eyes shone with a fearlessness that eclipsed my own, mirroring the yearning for truth in my heart. A choice lay before me. Would I heed the jumps of faith held delicately in my hands, or would I let fear dictate my fate? The storm mounted again, unable to be stilled, forcing my heart to race. A choice rolled through my mind and battled against the tempest. But now, it was no longer simply about survival, it was about facing my fears and embracing the path before me. The figure leaned forward, and as the words fell from her lips like malice shrouded in silk, they sent a shiver down my spine. "Your bond may save or forsake you, but the price will be yours alone to pay." And as the shadows surged once more, I knew that a shocking truth awaited, one I had not yet begun to uncover, a truth that tugged at the strands of fate, intertwining our destinies with irrevocable twists, threading the bonds of love and sacrifice into an uncertain future. "Together or not, the time has come," I whispered, breaking the silence as my heart trembled at the precipice of what was to come. The storm continued to howl around us, each gust of wind carrying a whisper steeped in uncertainty. I stood there, enveloped by the presence of those who meant so much to me. Eileen, Talia, Kai, and Elena. Yet doubt clawed at the edges of my heart, threatening to unravel the fragile threads of hope we had spun in the face of encroaching shadows. "That I can't let anyone get hurt because of me," I murmured, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down upon my shoulders like the heaviest stone. Each flickering flash of lightning illuminated the concern etched into my friends' faces, and it felt as if the world around us stilled for just a heartbeat. "Fun, we're all in this together," Eileen whispered firmly, squeezing my hand with reassuring strength. "You won't let us down, and we won't let you down either. That's the essence of this fight." Her words rang with a conviction that ignited a spark within me, but the hollowness of my fears loomed larger than anything we faced. Just then, Talia stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "You taught me to be brave, Fun. To stand in the face of adversity and not back down. Isn't that what bravery really is?" Her voice held a sincerity that shattered the shadows clinging to my heart, urging me to confront the unknown. "Maybe, but what if I don't have what it takes? What if I hesitated?" the question lingering in the air, unspoken yet palpable. Before I could finish, Kai raised his chin and addressed the swirling darkness. "You're not just a fighter, Fun. You're a light. We all carry our darkness, but it's how we face it that matters. Trust in that." Elena nodded, her expression a mix of determination and vulnerability. "And even if sacrificing ourselves looms as a possibility, we'll do it together if it comes to that. There's strength in being unafraid to embrace the worst parts of ourselves." Their words gathered around me like a protective cocoon, igniting a spark of courage in the depths of my heart. It wasn't just my own survival that mattered now, it was the survival of our shared dream, the idea of a world rid of the shadows that craved our destruction, and I couldn't let fear rob us of that potential. But just as I steeled myself, the cloaked figure's laughter cut through the air like shards of glass, echoing ominously in the stillness that followed. "Isn't it quaint," she mocked, "to believe that mere convictions can shield you from the chaos? You think yourselves united, but even the strongest bonds must face the unraveling." Before we could react, the shadows surged once again, a tidal wave of darkness that swept across the ground, intent on consuming everything in its path. "Stand strong," I commanded, feeling adrenaline course through my veins as we all instinctively drew closer together, the warmth of our connection fighting against the chill of despair. But within the chaotic thrumming of my heart, I felt something shift, a deep thud that resonated in tandem with the pulse of the storm. The moment shattered, revealing an unsettling truth I hadn't considered before. If I push against the shadows, what might I lose? What price might I have to pay? The realization struck like lightning. The shadows spoke not just of external fears, but of the hidden depths within myself, the insecurities and regrets that could undo me from the inside out. If I were to confront them, would I risk losing my friends, my very essence along the way? Stand firm, Eileen shouted, breaking the grip of my internal turmoil. Her voice cut through the cacophony like a beacon of strength. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of their unwavering belief in me, and summoned every ounce of that belief in return that I am the eye of the storm. As shadows lunged toward us in thick robes of darkness, I felt a flicker beneath my heart, the haven of shared warmth and the promise of unwavering loyalty. I reached for it, understanding that while my past mistakes threatened to weigh me down, they also shaped me into someone capable of welding both light and shadow, a powerful counterbalance. But just as I began to forge the connection anew, a new voice emerged from the darkness, hushed yet suffocating in its delivery. You think you're ready to confront your fate? Look around you, Fun. We both know this cannot end well. That I turned my gaze, desperation clawing at my throat. Who are you? Someone you should have forgotten, yet here I stand, as real as the guilt entwined in your heart. My existence is tied to yours. You cannot escape the compulsion to atone if you wish to rise from this chaos. The shadows widened, tendrils slithering through the air, breathing my name as if it were a curse. My heart raced against a tide of memories, the failures, the moments I wished could be rewritten, all echoing like drums of war in my mind. Suddenly, Kai gasped, eyes wide as he stepped in front of me. No. You don't get to twist his past against him. We've moved beyond that. But the shadows only laughed, the sound a mirthless symphony that crescendoed into a brazen proclamation. Let him stay lost within his regrets. He's already on the cusp of despair. The decision will be his. Let's see how far he will fall. In that moment, as the figure began to dissolve into the shadows, I realized the haunting truth. Facing my fears and past mistakes would mean confronting not only the darkness around me but also the abyss within. The weight of their repercussions might consume us all, and in that precipice, the true test of our unity lay bare. Eileen, Talia, Kai, Elena, I breathed, my voice trembling. If I face this, you must stay by my side. Whatever the outcome, I can't bear to lose you. Each of them nodded resolutely, but uncertainty flickered in their eyes. As the shadows writhed with new life, and the choice hung in the balance, a new surge of energy pulsed through me, bridging the unseen connection that tied our fates together. And in that perilous instant, I felt the storm shift around us, and I understood, if we were to fight this fight against fate itself, we would do it not just with hearts held high, but with the burden of our intertwined destinies. The truth of that knowledge sliced like another bolt of lightning, flickering across the stormy skies. The time for choice was nigh, and the consequences would envelop us in ways we had yet to fathom. And just as a howling wind swept over the battlefield, spiraling into a deafening crescendo, an unexpected voice emerged from the void, an echo of my father, and a long-buried secret that would unravel everything I believed. Fun, there's something you need to know. The world folded in on itself, the shadows rising as if hungry creatures feeding off my confusion. I felt the heaviness of my father's voice deep within my bones, reverberating with a truth that had yet to be unraveled. Fun, there's something you need to know. I blinked against the storm, desperate to hold his gaze, longing for the comfort of familiarity even as the darkness slithered menacingly around us. What is it? I called out into the chaos, my voice shaking, nearly lost beneath the roar of the tempest. Then, slowly but surely, the shadows receded just a fraction, as if opening space for a painful revelation. All this time, you have pursued the paths of your brother and Suri, searching for the truth behind their stories. My father's voice echoed, a profound sadness lacing each syllable. But the heart of the matter lies in your own shadow. Panic surged through me at his words. My own shadow? I repeated, confusion clawing at the edges of my composure. The shadows around me twisted, morphing into nightmarish figures, faces I recognized and yet did not, all tied to past hurts, unspoken regrets, and fears that I had buried deep. I left you with a legacy of secrets, Fun. Secrets that weighed heavy upon me, secrets I could not bear to pass down without stark warnings, he continued, his presence somehow both engulfing and protective. Your pursuit of knowledge came at a high price, one I have tried to prepare you for, even as I failed. Waves of despair washed over me. I felt swept up in his revelations, torn between hopelessness and vulnerability. I'm sorry, I whispered, anguish choking me as the memories spiraled in torment. I didn't know how to carry these secrets. And now they threaten everything, everyone I care about. The storm's roar intensified, the shadows laced with bitter intent, but somewhere in the tempest, I felt a glimmer of something like hope, something anchoring me in the chaos. Eileen stood close, her eyes fierce, the warmth of her presence a shelter against the looming despair. "You're not alone, Fun. Well, face them together." But my father's voice continued to murmur, weaving between the chaos, "You must confront not just your past but the choices you've made. Your search for the truth must pull you forward, not deepen the void." With his words, the shadows reflected moments I had hidden, the looks of disappointment, the regrets that haunted me like specters trailing in my wake. The sudden realization hit me, crystallizing a moment I had long tried to suppress. My brother Cale wasn't the only one who had made choices burdened with consequence. My own decisions crafted a web that ensnared not only myself but those I cared for, their darkness intertwined with mine in ways I had yet to comprehend. Before I could process it all, the shadows surged forward, trying to smother my thoughts, trying to obliterate my resolve. The figure of my father loomed larger, as if he willed himself past the veil of darkness to encourage me forward. "Fun. Survival is not merely about preserving one's life, it's understanding how to weave the truth with those closest to you. Accept them. Accept yourself. The shadows only have power over what you deny." The truth broke like dawn across the horizon of my mind, shattering uncertainty. I was not defined by grief, nor by the decisions of the past. The realization lit a fire within me, igniting courage I never thought I could find. "Then I will confront them," I shouted defiantly, locking eyes with Eileen, Talia, Kai, and Elena, their unwavering support a fortress against the darkness. The shadows recoiled for a moment, a glimmer of fear rippling through them. Grasping onto that flicker, I became resolute. "I will not be chained by my past. Our bonds are stronger than your lies." The words felt like a vow crafted with every ounce of understanding I had unraveled, a binding pact of courage woven into my very essence. A surge of energy shot through me, a tidal wave of light pushing back the shadows. I felt Eileen's warmth coat me like armor, while emotions coursed through all of us as we pulsed in unison, an unbreakable force drawn into a lineage I had long yearned to understand. The air crackled as I turned, facing the looming figure of my father. "Together, we can confront the legacy of shadows. I refuse to let them decide who I am." The shadows quaked, the air thick with the terrible force that threatened to engulf us. Yet, facing it all head-on felt like the most liberating act of my life. "No. We emerge from this together. We will write a new legacy." In that instant, I felt something shift, an unseen connection pulling tight around us. A brilliant light ignited, wrapping around Eileen and me, enveloping Talia, Kai, and Elena. The shadows shrieked in defiance, but as our combined strength surged, a path opened before us, a passage illuminated by the truth born from our shared courage and sacrifice. "Feel it. The echoes are ours to transform." I shouted over the cacophony, embracing the chaos with open arms, determined to spin it into something of our making. A powerful warmth washed over me as the light surged, consuming fear as we pressed forward, defiance blazing at our backs. And then, as if by divine reasoning, a new realm manifested, a world bathed in light, filled with the laughter of those long lost and the promise of hope renewed. We emerged into a place that felt like home, a beautiful landscape breathing with life, filled with colors I had never seen before. And as the shadows of the past melted into memories, a realization settled deep within me. Maybe we don't always get to choose our destinies, but we must always encounter the truth of who we are. Amid that brightness, I turned to Eileen, feeling unbound. We did this together. We are the legacies of our choices, the hues of our pasts, and the spirit of what we create anew. As she nodded, that fierce determination etched in her features, I felt the ties of our combined futures buoy us into the brilliance ahead. "Together," I echoed again, my soul soaring. "We will face whatever lies ahead," head held high. It wasn't merely that the shadows had been vanquished, it was that we had chosen to rise above them, to embrace the past and shape it into something that bridged the gap between light and darkness. And in that moment, I realized with clarity that the deepest scars can birth the brightest cities of hope. And as I gazed at my friends, this vibrant tapestry of life interwoven with our choices, I whispered, heart poised in fragile majesty, "We've finally found our way home."